Welcome back to Highlands Breakfast from Boston. My name is Bob Babbitt. With me, 351 miler, Mr. Will Leer. Does it get to the point now where 351, man, that sounds fast. Does that even surprise you sometimes?
Sounds fast to me still. Absolutely. No, I mean, anything sub 4 is an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah.
And now, as we watch it, I mean, it doesn't seem as much so these days because the collegians have sort of redefined the mile indoors, and you get guys in January running 355, 354.
You're going, what the heck? You're not supposed to break 4 in the winter.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
not learning that.
No, they haven't taken a note out of our book yet.
What the heck? So, Will, growing up, sports growing up, or was it always running, or was it something else?
Sports for me growing up revolved around running, but was never specifically running. I viewed myself as an avid soccer player.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
High school, college, that's what you were planning on.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
And then, it got turned on its head the first time I ran a track race.
What was that first track race?
It was an indoor race at the University of Minnesota. I ran the 4x400 meters, which, I mean, if you're a high school coach, don't do that to someone, because all I remember is burying my head in a trash can for about an hour afterwards. It's the 400. Like, come on, it's one of the hardest races in track and field. It was nuts. But I was running with 3 seniors. I had a blast.
Yeah.
And I was basically like, all right, you're on the team. And I was like, I'm on the what?
Yeah,
I don't want to do that again.
I'm a soccer player.
I don't want to do it again. I joined the track team to get faster for soccer.
Right.
But then after that initial season, it seemed like it went the other direction. Soccer was to keep me in shape for track.
What was interesting with soccer, when you're talking about trying to go to college, you have a particular skill set. The college coach might not need that skill set. He might not need an outside guy. He might need a goalie. And so your scholarship isn't necessarily based on your ability. It's based on their need. When
Sure.
you're a 4-minute miler, or you've got a finite time, it's a little easier to get yes or no's from colleges.
Unless that college has, already a stable of 4-minute milers, then you got to go take your talents elsewhere. You're absolutely right.
Which you did, Pomona.
Yeah, I did. But it was, Pomona, we were just happy to get anyone that wanted to be on the team.
You were taking people from the parking lot.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Oh, you want to run? Let's go.
You
Come
have
on.
shoes?
Yeah.
You're ahead of the game.
I think my freshman year, we had 21 guys on the team in cross country, and that was the largest team that my coach had ever had.
Yeah.
And 21 guys on a Division I program, they're like, that's freshman class. Maybe not even freshman class.
Did it turn out to be good for you to be at a smaller college, maybe a bigger fish in a smaller pond?
It was, I think, the reason I'm still running today.
Yeah.
When I joined the team at Pomona, there was a guy, Crosby Freeman, who is
I
1 year.
know that name.
Yeah. Bay Area superstar, Crosby Freeman. He was the top returning freshman in Division III cross country.
Yeah.
And he was 1 year older than me, and he showed me the ropes. I mean, every workout, he'd be, Will, just get on my hip, just ride. I don't mind leading every step of the way. I did it last year, but push yourself.
For him, he was happy to have somebody he could run with.
Happy to have someone he could run with.
And you were happy somebody to lead. That's fine.
Yeah.
At that point, you were looking for a little guidance.
Absolutely. I'd never run a full season of cross country before, and so I learned everything I knew from him.
So outdoor nationals, second to Nick Simmons in the 1500. That was one of those races that you'll remember for a while?
Yeah, mostly because he and I went straight to the liquor store afterwards and bought a case of beer and shared it. It was so much fun. Nick and I had known each other as cross country guys that begrudgingly ran cross country because we knew it was good for track.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of like you did running because it was good for soccer.
Exactly. Yeah, we'd high five each other at the end of a cross country race, at nationals, cool, season's over. Let's move on to the next thing.
Because that's way too far. Cross country compared to running.
If they still had 8K cross country, I might be interested in it. D3 we ran 8K all year.
Right.
So it wasn't too bad. But I'll never forget, sitting down with my coach before that race and him saying, you're probably going to need to run around 50 seconds for the last quarter mile to beat Nick Simmons. And I was like, well, that's pushing my PR in the 400, but hell, I'll give it a shot. And I think Nick and I ran about 51 seconds for our last lap that day, and man, we had a fun time.
And so you would run against him in cross country. Was that one of the first times in track? No, you'd run against him in track.
I'd never raced him in track because I'd never. My junior year of college was the first year I made it to the NCAA meet.
So, and that sort of forged a little friendship?
Oh yeah, I mean he was in my wedding party. You know, we're the best of friends.
Based on that, you know, that was sort of the kickoff.
That was the kickoff.
The track and then the bar.
Well,
the liquor store.
Yeah, you know, sharing a celebratory beer on
yes.
well-deserved accomplishments.
Exactly.
We kept in touch after that quite closely, and I watched him then after that meet go on and run 340 at this little meet at Stanford, and then get second in the U.S. in the 800.
Yes.
After his senior year, and then I watched what he did, and I thought that was what professional running was, and sort of followed on his coattails to the Oregon Track Club.
Do you feel sometimes, like when you're at a smaller college, do you feel like, okay, the Olympics and that's for the big boys. That's not for small colleges. Is there that mentality sometimes?
You know, I think there may have been that mentality before.
Yes.
But you know,
Not anymore.
remember when Nick and I were in college, there wasn't like Twitter and Instagram were the thing. Flow Track wasn't a thing.
Right.
We had DieStat and,
Yes.
and Let's Run.
Yes.
You know, we didn't have track videos and all this like online coaching stuff available. So, how
much has that changed the track and field world? Just all when you say
incredibly. I mean,
the
just
social media
watch high school
and
times.
flow. Yeah.
Watch high school times, because you have high school coaches that previously did not have access to what proper coaching was. You know, coaching was, all right, go out and
run.
Go run.
Run more.
Run more. Run faster. Run slower.
Yeah.
And so now it's so easy to get an education. It's so easy to immerse yourself, but I think it's also easy to overdo it. And I think
No
that
question.
a lot of times the danger in that is that you have kids running too much too soon.
I couldn't agree with you more.
You know, when Nick and I were both multiple trick ponies in high school. You know, I played tennis, soccer, downhill skiing, and track and field, and I dabbled in cross country.
So you were basically cross training.
I had a lot of different interests I liked to do.
Right.
That. And then when I got to college, I sort of narrowed my focus, which allowed me to get the most out of my body.
Yes.
I think that you can see now kids get, you know, pushing themselves so hard at an early age that they get a little burned out mentally and physically from the sport.
Do you see, I mean, one of my pet peeves is high school coaches piling way too much mileage on these kids, and then they're gone, right? And we see it all the time, because from the world of triathlon, we get a lot of those kids who end up getting burnt out. And my feeling is, God, if these coaches would do some of this swim, bike, run, even if not stationary bike, something a little different, you're still tuning the engine. You're still working, but you wouldn't burn these kids out so quickly and get them injured.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the job of the high school coach. And I feel so fortunate to have had a high school coach at Minnetonka, Jeff Renland, who all of the guys that come through our program, when they leave Minnetonka, they love running. And they are lifetime runners.
Yes.
They're not out there because they don't want to be. They don't think that they're being overworked. They're out there, they're having fun, they're enjoying the process.
Right.
Could he do more to make some of the kids run faster? Probably, but he knows that's the job of the college coach.
See, and it's interesting. I remember having Coach Bob Larson on my show once and saying, how do you know you're successful? And he goes, if a kid I work with is still running 10 years after I work with him, I was successful.
We go back in the summer, and the amount of and variety of age of high school alums that come back to go for a run every once in a while, Sunday long runs down at the lakes in Minneapolis, it's incredible.
They're still there.
Yeah.
They're still there. So talk about 2008, the Olympic trials, but leading into the trials, right? You've got just the knowing you're going to the trials. I mean, were you living in Oregon
I
at the
lived
time?
less than 2 miles from Hayward Field, so there was no forgetting that the trials were happening.
And there's like big billboards, trials coming in 300 days, 250 days, 200 days.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, it says 6 days. You're like, what the heck just said? You blinked your eyes.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience, and I wouldn't redo that in any way. I had never been to a trials before. I'd been to one U.S. championship. I'd say that was an anomaly for an athlete that was going to be there that following summer. And Eugene is Tracktown USA.
Yes.
You know, and the amount of support that we got from the community as Oregon
Crazy.
Track Club athletes leading into that return of the trials to Eugene was truly unbelievable. And it was so much fun. a huge amount of stress. But we also, I got to sleep in my bed the night before the Olympic trials final. So there's a lot to be said about that in terms of comfort.
When you look back at that and you get a fourth, 3:41.54 in the finals,
Yeah.
one spot away, how do you look back and go, what could I have done? Or was it like, listen, that was an opportunity, and I did everything I could, and that's the way it goes?
It's probably one of the races I look back most fondly on in my career. It was my first year out of college.
Yeah.
I probably had 15 college teammates that were at the race. My parents were there. My brother was there. They were there for the whole trial. They were there for 10 days.
Right.
Track and field nuts. And I knew going into the final that the likelihood of my making the Olympic team wasn't very high. I had not run the qualifying time.
Oh, that's right. At that point, you still needed the A standard.
Yeah, and I remember sitting down with Gags, and Gags said, the best thing about you is you're a competitor. Just go in there and compete. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And ran my ass off for the last 400 meters and just started flying by guys. And, I got to think that if I'd had that qualifying time in my pocket, that maybe that third spot would have been mine. But, that wasn't what the race was about.
So even if you had gotten third,
it wouldn't have made a difference.
You wouldn't have made a difference. You still don't go because you don't have an A
make a little
standard.
bit more prize money, and that's about it. It may be a little bit more heartbreaking.
Going and training, like you said, you had run a Pomona. Now you're running with with the Nike guys, right? You're running up there with Oregon Track Club. What did you learn from that?
Oof. I think the number one thing that I learned was that I belonged. I remember going up there and sitting at practice the first day. We're sort of outside in Hayward Field, but outside of Hayward Field. And we're sitting down there, and Gags is giving us some sort of spiel. And I look around and I think, every guy here has run under 147 or 146 for the 800. Everyone's run under 4 minutes for the mile. Like, holy crap, where am I? This is awesome. And just like being in that company, I think well, I don't really belong here. And then as the days, weeks, months go by, you solidify yourself in training as one of the guys. Yeah. And then you're just one of the guys. And that was pretty incredible, because then I went to races, big races, and I didn't think, oh, I'm a D3 guy, I'm in over my head. So yeah, this is what it is, just like practice.
So this last year and a half, through 2015, you really had your first major injury that kept you from doing what you love to do. How hard was that for you to deal with, both mentally and physically?
It was incredibly difficult. As endurance athletes, we all have our little niggles.
Always.
And I think that one of the things that's made me the successful athlete that I have been today is that I'm pretty durable. I can put in a lot of miles, I put in a lot of work, and I just don't really get injured.
Yeah.
So having to deal with that first injury, it gave me a lot of sympathy for chronically injured athletes, because it was hard.
Yes.
It was hard to wake up in the morning and think, you look out your window and you see the neighborhood, your neighbor goes for a run. You're like, I want to go for a run, and I can't go for a run. It's my job to go for a run.
This is what you do for a living, and I can't
go for a run. And that's going to inhibit your performance when you want it to be the best.
Yeah.
And so that was an enormous mental challenge. And then, just having to be on the gas and know that there was no room for error in preparation for the trials, because you had only a few months in which you could train.
Yeah.
That was tough. But I think it reaffirmed for me why I do what I do for a living, that my drive is stronger than it's ever been, and that the tools were still there. I had a couple of little things that went wrong at the end of the season, that were a little suboptimal, as we would say.
Yes.
But still loved it.
That's so cool. And so for this year, you're running the mile here tomorrow.
The BAA 1 mile.
Okay.
Get to finish at the marathon line, at the finish line.
Without having to run 26 miles. How sweet is that?
I think that we're going to make most of the people in this expo realize how long they have to run on Monday.
Yeah, because they're going to have to do 26 laps.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the silliest thing in the world.
Yeah.
When you watch these guys out running marathons, you look at that and go, that is like the silliest thing I've ever seen.
I don't particularly understand it. Again, though, a lot of respect. A lot of respect. Yeah. I know that, when I go out for a long training run, how tired I am after even running.
What is a long training run?
It's somewhere between 18 and 20 miles.
Oh, so you're doing that long?
Oh, yeah. Ron Warhurst is a crazy man.
I was going to say, that's for 5K. Back in the day, Steve Scott was running 100 miles a week as a miler. I never quite understood that, but If it works, it works.
You know, he was a very successful miler. We learned a lot from Steve Scott.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think, I think someday in my future there will be a marathon. It's not going to be this week.
No.
And probably not next year. But watching people cross the finish line and that elation, I think, is one of the great joys of running, and getting to see people experience what we experience on sort of a weekly, monthly basis when we're in race season is pretty awesome.
So what are the goals for this year? I mean, obviously the big goal is 2020, I'm assuming, but that's so far away.
I'm not in the business right now of putting 4-year goals on the table.
No.
Ron and I are working very methodically to compartmentalize smaller, achievable goals.
Okay.
So the goal this year is to run well tomorrow.
And get healthy.
And then the next goal is to run well at Stanford in the 5K. And then the next goal after that is sort of to start putting the 15 pieces of the 1500 puzzle back together, and reestablish myself as a competitive 1500 meter runner in the U.S.
Right.
I sort of have lost that a little bit in the last 2 years, and anyone that's been out on the track with me this year knows that it's not far off.
You're getting close.
Getting close. I can smell it.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for taking time.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. It was great having you on the radio show. It's great having you here. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful season, man.
And best of luck to everyone running the marathon on Monday.
Will Leer has been our guest. Hold on, everybody. We will be right back. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was really fun.
That was awesome.
You don't mess around. So what was your injury? What did you have?
I tore both of my burn muscles.
Both?
They attached to the blue. Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of like